Their support for this constitutional amendment. So the very first presentation we did was at the South Robertson Neighborhood Council back in 2011 in summer. And as a result of that, they sent letters to the LA City Council, to all the way up to the President of the United States. And that letter was actually taken up by Eric Garcetti, excuse me, who was inspired by this effort to introduce a resolution. And over the next few months, we really built an incredibly active coalition of all kinds of community groups, labor organizations, political groups, some of whom are all standing in the back here with our t-shirts. We passed a resolution in December 2011 through the LA City Council and became the first major city in the United States to do so, calling for a constitutional amendment. After that date, over 400 cities and towns across the United States, 11 states, multiple attorney generals in various states have called for a constitutional amendment. And now we've gone one step further, and we've actually gotten a proposition on the ballot in Los Angeles that will be on the May 21st ballot, which will give voters a chance to directly weigh in on this issue of overturning this Supreme Court decision, which established that corporations are people and have the constitutional rights of people, and opens the floodgates of unlimited corporate campaign donations and the wholesale auctioning of our government on all levels. So we're coming here today to ask LANC to pass a resolution in support of Proposition C, and to go back to the various neighborhood councils. And so far, by going from council to council, have gotten the endorsement of 13, but I know there's quite a few more. So we'd like to, if possible, speed up the process and get as many endorsements as we can before May 21st for the election. So that's our ask for today. I'm going to hand off the microphone to one of our newer volunteers, Steve Bass, a retired attorney who has decided to dedicate his time, full time, to this issue of getting money out of politics, because he feels it is that vital to our democracy. And Steve has put together a PowerPoint that's just going to go into a little bit more depth about really the dangers that we face in where we are right now with money in politics. So,
bring on Steve.
Bring on Steve.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for inviting us and having us be here. My presentation is going to be short. It's about 10 minutes. And I am an attorney. We've heard a lot of talk about attorney today, but I'm a good one because I'm retired. So please don't hold that against me. As Mary Beth mentioned, the the Money Out, Voters In Coalition is a group that is supporting yes on Proposition C at the May 21 ballot. I wanted to start with a few numbers for you, and I hope you'll bear with me because I'm not an accountant, I'm not a mathematician, but there are some shocking numbers, many of which I think you'll know. So first, let's identify the problem. In the past 12 years, the amount of money that has been spent at the federal level in campaigns, presidential and Congress, has doubled from about 3.1 million to 6.2 million in this last election cycle. And the result has been that over 90% of the candidates with the most money win. Over 90%. And where does all that money come from? Well, the reality is it comes from a very small slice of we the people. We the people. In the 2012 cycle, about 0.05% of Americans maxed out on their contributions under the law. About 0.01% gave over $10,000 to super PACs. And my favorite number, 0.000063% of all donors gave 80% of the money to super PACs. And we all know the impact of super PACs on our election cycle. So the financial corruption of our elections has two primary effects. The first is that it leads to the passage of laws, tax breaks, ordinances at the local level that favor the special interests who have given contributions, often at the expense of the public interest. And second, and perhaps even more devastating, is that the majority of the people have lost confidence in their government. And a New York Times survey in 2012 found that only 9% of Americans have confidence in Congress. 9%. And to put that in perspective, that is less than the number of people who had confidence in the British Crown, King George III, at the time of the American Revolution. So we have lost confidence. So it's no wonder that 75% of Americans, including Democrats, Republicans, and independents, agree that, quote, money buys results in Congress. Now, for my favorite number, a July 2012 Gallup poll found that of the top 10 issues that voters were concerned about in the last election cycle, the second issue on that list, only behind good jobs, was corruption in government. But if you look at the web pages for President Obama and Mitt Romney, and you try to find space on that website where they talk about the issue of special interests corrupting our politics, guess how much space you would have found? My favorite number is 0. So the politicians don't want to talk about this issue. They didn't even mention it on the campaign trail, as you will recall. So the problem is corruption of big special interest money in our political system, not only at the national level, the state level, and even, of course, as you know very well, here at the local level. But this is not the system that our founders intended. In fact, the framers of our Constitution created a democratic republic. And in this republic, they intended the members of Congress to be dependent. But they created a dependency. But as James Madison put it in the Federalist Papers, it was to be a dependency on the people alone. A dependency on the people alone. So our system of government was to work like this. First, we choose our representatives. Second, they represent us. And third, the representatives pass laws that reflect the will of we the people. And this was to lead to results for building highways, education of our children, providing clean food, and so forth. Ultimately, unfortunately, Congress has developed a different kind of dependence. This is a dependence on the special interest money to fund their campaigns. This has created, in reality, a system which has, in effect, 2 elections. We still have the general election where we, the people, vote for the candidates. But before we vote, there's an election of the funders. And you have to win or do very well in the funders election, that is, getting the campaign contributions, before you have a chance to run and let us make a decision. So that is not what the intenders, the framers intended. So the result has been a race for campaign funds that has made the cost of running for the House and the Senate skyrocket, as you can see. And the problem was made even worse in 2010 when the United States Supreme Court decided the case of Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission. And in a 5-4 decision, the majority of the justices said that corporations, unions, wealthy individuals have a constitutional right to spend unlimited amounts of money as long as they don't coordinate with the candidates. And of course, as you all know, never is there any coordination between the PACs and the candidates. So the effect of big money in politics is to corrupt the system. Former Congresswoman Leslie Byrne of Virginia has told the story that when she first got to Congress, one of the Congress members took her aside and said, "Always lean to the green." And then she went on to clarify he was not an environmentalist. So our present system of elections has led to two kinds of corruptions. And the first is outright bribery, for which politicians have gone to jail, both Democrats and Republicans. But actually, this type of corruption has been around for thousands of years and is actually a very small problem in our current climate of whistleblowers, 24-hour news cycles. No, the real problem is not the brown bag full of cash, but the real problem is the legal system, the systematic and systemic corruption that happens every day in Washington and our state capitals, and I'm sure at our local level too. It's frequently called crony capitalism. This is where special interests contribute to the candidate's election, and that candidate, once elected, votes for the tax breaks, the laws, and the public handouts that the contributors want. This crony capitalism needs Congress, state legislators, local councils to spend between 30 and 70% of their time chasing the almighty campaign dollar. Is it any wonder that our pressing problems are not getting addressed? Issues such as decreasing the deficit, balancing our budgets, the federal and the local level, a reforming immigration system, education, whatever issue you want, is not getting addressed. So in summary, our fundamental problem today is that the funders of our elections are not the people. So what's the solution? Well, here's the key. We need to make the people the funders, not the special interests. But first, we must unite as Americans, regardless of our political philosophy. This is not a Democratic issue or a Republican issue. Over 80% of Democrats and over 70% of Republicans believe that special interest money is corrupting Congress. No, it's not a partisan issue. It is an American issue. And in fact, one of the powerful things of this movement is that beyond restoring our democracy, it is an issue which can unite us as Americans, that we can perhaps begin a conversation, a dialogue between conservatives and liberals, nonpartisans and partisans. And we can start coming together as Americans to deal with our problems. But we first must address this gateway problem. So what do? Our coalition has come up with a catchy little acronym to make this point. It's called READY, R-E-A-D-Y. Reform, Congress is going to have a bill to consider this term, the American Anti-Corruption Act. Provides public funding of elections, full disclosure, many good things. E, put our allies in office, people that will vote for cleaning up our elections. Amend the Constitution eventually. And D, to disclose what's going on. And then Y is U, to everyone getting involved. So the primary focus of our coalition right now is on Proposition C. And it's on the ballot on November 24th. I think they've got handouts here that have a little more information on it.
May 21st.
May 21st, sorry, corrected. But to pass Proposition C and ultimately to save our democracy, we will all need to work hard together. And the politicians will not do it for us. The special interests will not do it for us. The celebrities and sports stars are not going to come to save us. Nor will the academics. It will require all of us working together. Thank you so much. Questions? Sure.
How does this impact in Los Angeles,
In Los Angeles, the major contributors to campaigns are public unions. Just look at the money the IBEW has thrown at Wendy Gruhl. We really don't have corporation money here. What does your effort, Citizens United, how does that impact the spending of our public labor unions in a political contest?
Well, Citizens United, the decision opened it up not for just corporations, but for unions, wealthy individuals, anybody. And our coalition has taken the position that we want all special money interest out, be it corporations, be it unions, be it special interest groups, be it billionaires. That it should be we, the people, that are funding it in small contributions.
But the budget, the Prop C mentions corporations specifically. It does not mention anything about our public campaign funding unions.
Right. I never didn't address this, but it was written by the city attorney. Citizens United, the decision itself was actually considering a corporation, and they made the decision in that context, but it is applicable to yeah. And also the other part of the resolution is limits on political campaigns, which would apply across the board. No one's going to say, corporations can't contribute, but unions can.
That's not
And the unions have endorsed, some of the unions have endorsed Prop C. We have a little endorsement sheet, so you might need to.
No, I got it.
Part of the issue is that Citizens United basically established that corporations should be considered people under the Constitution, which has broad implications for our democracy, and essentially led to the overturning of all kinds of campaign finance laws, including a long-standing law that the state of Montana, a very red state, had since the beginning of this 20th century, that limited all corporate campaign donations because they understood from the mining corporations and the history that they lived through that, with the money and the power that a corporation has, which is a creature of the state, created by state charter, in order to amass capital, that to equate that with us living human beings who are protected by our Constitution against an overzealous government, but to bridge or bring together where the corporations now fund the government and are controlling the government. Basically, if they have constitutional rights, we lose our rights to pass legislation to regulate them.
Pete?
I'm definitely in favor of overturning Citizens United. I personally am in favor of public funding of elections. I'm still to know that's necessary. But only a minority of Americans support public funding. I find it unfortunate that you've adopted overturning Citizens United coupled with public funding to the degree possible without violating your sense of integrity. Please emphasize overturning Citizens United, and please don't so much couple it with public funding of elections, which the public hasn't yet seen the wisdom in a majority to advocate.
Well, I agree. Our PowerPoint probably focuses on that more because the resolution does not talk about public funding. It talks about overturning Citizens United.
Give it to David.
Mr. Chair, Rampart Village was the second neighborhood council to go with the move to amend. And as the LANC representative for Rampart Village, I would like to ask that LANC support Proposition C, that the NCs take back and propose the support for, NC take back and propose support for Proposition C, and the NC spend money to get the vote out.
Okay, so that's a motion. Do we have a second on it?
If no second, he'll die.
So the motion,
We have to keep it.
the motion is to have LANC endorse Proposition C, for the LANC members to take this message back to their neighborhood councils and seek the endorsement of their individual neighborhood councils. And then if there's money left in your allotment, to spend that for a get out the vote drive.
We can't do that.
Well, we did go through the city attorney that said you cannot advocate for a specific piece of legislation, but you could. We do have the documentation. You could spend the money to encourage your membership to vote. So, and you can educate voters. So you could just simply. We actually have a flyer that was approved by the city attorney that says, Get out and vote May 21st. There's a lot of important propositions, including Proposition C. It doesn't say how to vote on it, it just informs voters that it's there. Because as we all know, voter turnout is notoriously low, especially in a mayoral election. And we didn't have any budget to promote, no billboards for Proposition C. So the truth is, most people don't know that this is on the ballot. More people might go out and vote if they even knew it was on the ballot, because it is an issue that's important to so many people. Latest polls show that 90% of Americans think corporations have too much control over our government, and the support to overturn Citizens United is overwhelming. So part of what we're trying to do here is to build the grassroots awareness and the movement to actually follow through with this Herculean task of amending the Constitution. So that's what the ask is for the neighborhood council. So that's the motion.
Is to restate the motion so we can get it in front of us. The first part I have
Okay, is to
Proposition C.
yes, is to individual.
Wait, we have the language of C. Somebody moved
Right, and we need the second.
resolution.
We have a second
To his motion.
to his motion. You want to read it again so Dr. Dan can get it?
Yeah. The motion is that LANC support Proposition C.
The motion is to bring it back to the neighborhood councils for support of Proposition C. And the motion is to that NCs spend money to get out to vote, but not to promote any proposition.
Okay. Did we get that, Dr. Dan?
Could we say they spend whatever money they see fit, so that some neighborhood councils may not want to spend their money or may not have any money?
That isn't what the letter from the city attorney said. I just read it.
Oh, what does it say?
It basically says that we have to be neutral on it. We could say get out the vote.
Yes.
But we have to distribute it to all, not selected groups. It says it right.
Yeah.
Right, not selected groups.
That's my motion as corrected.
Okay. We have a second still? Okay. We have a second for Ken? Okay. Questions? No, it's one motion only.
With 3 parts.
Yes.
I move to amend the motion to eliminate Part 3.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor of eliminating that part? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Against? 1. Okay.
Okay, so
Remove the NCU spending portion of it. Okay. Anything?
Well, I had my hand up before, but I guess now it'll be reference to the, it'll be reference to the motion which I do not support. One of my biggest concerns is something that Jack pointed out, that one of the problems we have in Los Angeles is not just the PACs that are corporations, but the fact that this is not talking about other specific,
Unions?
unions, and blue is a much nicer color than the red and the purple we see a lot in local LA. I was intrigued by your reference that you hadn't really been involved before. I think I'm understanding that California Common Cause, which is part of the national organization and funded with Open Society Institute and all that sort of thing, is supporting this. So it's really great that you have this grassroots out. I'm concerned that this is only going after one aspect of this, where the other side is a very substantial problem in Los Angeles, and particularly with a lot of the things that these neighborhood councils have to deal with day in and day out, Monday through Saturday, particularly Saturday morning sometimes, about funding in the city, and the fact that this is only going after one aspect of a large issue without necessarily disclosing the specific intentions to address the public unions is why I would not support this motion.
Okay. Sir?
I agree with David. I don't see how we can support this for the people of the city. For the people in the city of Los Angeles, where corporations and super PACs really aren't an issue, and the real influence here is the campaign contributions from our public labor unions, such as the IDEW. It doesn't address that, and that's the problem that we have here.
can I respond to any of that? Or not?
What's coming?
Okay.
It's right there in the back of the street. Ruben, right there.
Hi, thanks. I take issue with this assertion that corporations are not an issue in Los Angeles, when the majority of the meeting this morning dealt with the rights of Clear Channel to have digital billboards in neighborhoods where we don't want them. And the young man himself said that the courts have found that commercial speech is free speech and protected speech, and this is what we're up against. The union issue is, as far as a funding issue and an influence issue, it's obviously something that affects Los Angeles, but I think we are blind to the impact of corporate rights. And this digital billboard issue this morning is a perfect example. They're going to sue the city for not letting them do what we don't want them to do. How is that not a corporate problem in Los Angeles?
Dr. Dan?
I wonder if the maker of the motion would consider that number 2, bring it back to the neighborhood councils, is what we do with anything we pass, and therefore maybe a moot point here, and we can then focus on the idea of whether we do support or do not support Proposition C. Is that acceptable to the maker of the motion?
That's David, that's you.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Well, it's part of our standard procedure that when we make a motion, that we do send it to our neighborhood councils. So it isn't necessary for you to make that motion, and I think what we're focusing on here is support or not support to Proposition C. Is that an acceptable adjustment of your motion?
All right, sure. And then
This has nothing to do with my own personal politics, but I feel like I've fallen into the rabbit hole with Alice here, when two of the 5 mayoral candidates that we had here, the 2 who received money from the largest organizations and the most money from the largest organizations favor this, and the other 3 candidates have not signed on to it, the ones who didn't get the money and who didn't. There's just something wrong in my head here.
all right, well, thank you.
Stay in order.
Pete?
I want to also raise my voice challenging the silly and unfact-based assertion that money isn't a problem in LA City elections from corporations or anyone else. Now, people who are finding a problem with unions want to talk about this language doesn't attack them sufficiently. But the base core issue here is Citizens United, which gave new rights to unions and corporations alike, should be overturned. And when it is overturned, federal and state law will go back to its former status. People can argue about and legislate whatever should be allowed. We do have dollar limits for elections in Los Angeles City. So overturning this doesn't grant unions a carve-out, a special right. It just takes the law back to what it used to be. And definitely Citizens United, because there's anybody can spend an unlimited amount of money in an election, that's wrong.
And we need to move forward.
And I'm in support of this because I've done a considerable amount of research in the last 4 or 5 months and been part of getting Boyle Heights and the Eastern Region neighborhood councils that actually support what happened in City Council. My big thing is it was an education and eye-opener. This is a national problem that has to be done at the stakeholder level. So it's in our privy to actually use this and to leverage this, just like immigration is a whole other issue that a lot of us in the community can leverage. So I am strongly in support of this, and I encourage others to be as well.
All right, thank you. Let us move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, LANC endorses Proposition C. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. Those opposed? 3.
How many does it take for a quorum?
We don't have a quorum.
We don't have
We don't have quorum.
abstain.
And abstain?
We haven't invoked this yet today, but we should at least provide if there are two people from the same council, there's one vote to be given.
Right. Right, and that's basically I see it as well. So, okay, abstentions? 0. All right.
When you did vote, did we have the quorum?
Yeah, we don't have a quorum.
Okay, so then will we record that the sense of those present at the end of the meeting
Yes.
was thus?
Right. Exactly. We have 2 motions that were brought in.